story from a friend of mine that happened in the life of her colleague. In our team, Irina Stanislavovna was called Aunt Centner behind her back. Needless to say, at 40 with a tiny ponytail, this lady had very significant advantages, of which, however, she was not at all embarrassed. Moreover, I even tried to emphasize them. Smiles involuntarily appeared on our faces every time this bun rolled into our office in yet another stretched trousers and translucent blouse. With all this, Stanislavna's aunt was good-natured, cheerful, and harmless. Therefore, the team willingly forgave her these little oddities. One day, trouble happened in the life of our Aunt Centner. Her husband left. This eccentric found somewhere a young lady 10 years older than himself and, having collected his belongings, taxied to her. But Stanislavna did not intend to lose heart for a long time, and certainly did not plan to give up on her female happiness. Without delay, I decided to look for a contender for my hand, my heart, and all my more than 100 kilograms of beauty. The search method I chose was very unique, one might say old-fashioned. She put an advertisement in one local newspaper. They say, "A beautiful lady with curvy figures is looking for a life partner." She provided her mobile phone number as contact information. And what? Calls from potential suitors poured in like a cornucopia. Our marriageable maiden immediately rejected most of the candidates. Some were not suitable by age, others by material well-being. Stanislavna, of course, went on dates several times, but even those candidates did not make the right impression. Several months have passed since the advertisement was submitted, and our fussy little one was still looking for. It all started with strange dreams, or rather a dream that was repeated exactly several times. Stanislavna dreamed that someone was knocking loudly on the door of her apartment. She responds to the knock, but for some reason she doesn't want to open it at all. "Who's there?" Irina asks timidly. According to the advertisement, a rough male voice responds from behind the door. This is where they would send her an uninvited guest at all fours, but as if obeying some unknown force, she unlocks the lock. Further, from the words of Auntie Centner herself, you still can't tell it better than her. When I open it, I look, my goodness man, or rather based on his height and wide shoulders, I guess he's a man, but I can't see his face. And he's all wrapped from head to toe in some kind of black rag. Well, I think they've arrived. That's how my groom came to me. I've dreamed about this all my life. Here, my dear guest takes a step forward and enters my apartment without any invitation. I mean, I'm trying to push him, but I can't even move him anywhere. It's scary. It's scary. This is where I wake up. And last night, girls, my nightmare came true. Or rather, it didn't quite come true, thank God. In general, from Saturday to Sunday, I spent the night alone. I sent my son to stay with Dad. I'm sleeping, which means I'm not touching anyone. Suddenly, I hear someone banging on the door. I'll say right away that I live in a new house. Our yard is fenced with a metal fence. You can only get into the territory by passing the intercom. The entrance also has an intercom, and on the floor. In addition to the apartment doors, there is also a common door to the corridor, quite strong, locked with a key. Why am I doing all this? Besides, it's not so easy to just get from the street to our fortress. In general, when I heard a knock in the middle of the night, I immediately thought to my neighbors if something had happened. I trudge into the hallway, trying to fasten my robe on the way. For the sake of order, I ask, "Who's there?" And from behind the door they bark. According to the announcement, that's when I was taken aback. You won't believe it. It's like I fell into a terrible dream. "What other announcement?" I scream. "Dear man, were you looking at your watch? Go to sleep first and then show up." The guest doesn't seem to hear me. He continues to break in. I look through the peephole and there was nothing. Pitch darkness. Although usually, the light in our common corridor is not turned off either day or night. At this point, I was completely thrown into a stupor. I stood there petrified. I didn't know what to do, either call the police or call my neighbors for help. Suddenly I hear some noise from the kitchen. I run there and understand someone is knocking on the window. Well, that's no big deal. I live on the 10th floor, the balcony is on the other side. Who and how can drum on my window? Meanwhile, the door is almost shaking. It's good that it's new and strong, otherwise it would definitely crack in half. I jump out into the hallway again, and again the roar comes to me, this time from the bedroom. Now that means someone is banging on the window there. In despair, I fell to my knees right next to the front door and began to read prayers, all the ones I remembered. And what do you think? Everything was quiet. True, I sat on the floor in the hallway until the morning. I didn't have the strength to get up, honestly. I only dared to look out when I could hear the neighbors talking from the corridor. I crawl out of the apartment. So, they say, and so, what was going on here at night? The neighbors are surprised. They slept. They assure them quietly they did not hear any noise. And the corridor was locked. Naturally, there are no traces of someone else's presence. In short, girls, I packed my things, asked my son to stay with his father for a while, and went to my mother out of harm's way. By the way, before leaving, I examined the door. At first, it seemed like there was nothing, but then I saw many thin, short, barely visible scratches. As if someone had manipulated a thin nail. God knows where they came from. That's it, my little fish. Now go and know what kind of fianc was visiting me. I'll tell you one thing. I'll call the newspaper today and ask them to remove this damn advert. Irina Stanislavovna lived with her mother for several more weeks, afraid to return to her apartment. She has not yet found a reasonable explanation for the events of that strange night. Who knows what it could be? Strangers, hardly neighbors too, because my colleague swears and swears that they are respectable people and would not joke like that. Again, how to explain the knocking on the 10th floor window? In general, this story contains more questions than answers. After this incident, our Aunt Centner swore off giving any advertisements. You never know what kind of candidates read them. I decided to act on my own. Now she is full of hope, and she even lost a little weight, either from stress or from the anticipation of great love.